Welcome to this session on media and media cooperation. Um, this always seems to me like something of a misnomer because media is supposed to compete. But when we're talking in an international context, and especially the context of a region where there is conflict, there are tensions, the lack of integration, it is, I think, both useful and necessary to look at what scope there is for media cooperation. The traditional methods by which one would look at this are exchange of reporters in different countries to have them present. Another would be syndicating content across the region. And third, I suppose, would be conferences where people get to know each other and discuss issues. I'm sure our speakers will have their own perspectives on these. I will come in with some comments at the end. We have about an hour because we started a little late. And we will start from left and move from your left and move right, from my right move left. The speakers' profiles are with you in your conference papers, but I will just briefly introduce them when they start speaking. And since we're starting with Mr. Pradhan, he is highly educated. He's completed a Master's in Public Administration from Harvard. He has an MA in Journalism from New York University and is also a Master's in Economics from Tribhuvan University in Nepal. He currently is editing Nepal's most influential daily, the Nagarik, and he's been doing that from last year. Earlier he edited the Kathmandu Post for 5 years and the economic daily Karobar for 4 years. He's also active in the field of economic and public policy and policy analysis. So, Mr. Pradhan, over to you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Chairman, and thanks to the RIS for giving me this opportunity to come here and address this August gathering. When we are talking about media cooperation in South Asia, it's kind of a daily routine for me because I have been in journalism for like 20 years, and almost every year we have a media summit. And in those media summits, we always come up with the declarations, sometimes Kathmandu declaration, sometimes Delhi declarations, and on all those declarations, we say that the media cooperation has to be there. And until now, until today, I have not seen any media cooperation as such. What is the media cooperation in South Asia? So far I have understood is that if we talk about India and Nepal, then the cooperation is on the use of PTI and other news services in Nepal. That is one. And use of your Times of India, Hindustan Times, and other web portals to know about what Imran Khan is doing and what are the new movies. So we use that as a cooperation. Otherwise, I have not seen any cooperation as such. And there was in terms of like increasing the cooperation between our countries, Nepal once tried very hard to push its newspaper, the Kathmandu Post, when I was the editor from 2003 to 2008. We tried very hard to push the Kathmandu Post into Delhi market. We could never do that. There was no policy hindrance, but it could not happen. And whereas we get all Indian newspapers in Kathmandu, and that was a big issue earlier. It is no more an issue because now due to the web portals, due to the online portals, everybody can read the Kathmandu Post or whatever newspapers we have in Nepal if somebody wants to read in India or anywhere else. So that has not become an issue. But still, what my point is that the media cooperation has been pretty low. And we have in one of the sessions, our Sri Lankan friend who was presenting on the media, the situation of acceptance of media, Dr. Sama Kalegama. He mentioned that how poor is the media acceptance among each other countries. So I think we have to also look into it once again. I was looking for the paper in the pen drive that was provided to us, but I didn't get that. Anyways, so when we talk about media cooperation, what extent of cooperation are we talking about? Only like a physical cooperation, or is it possible like the physical cooperation? I would like to give you an example of Asia News Network. That is one Asia News Network where there are many members from India as well, like the Statesman, if I remember correctly, maybe in the Sun Times. In the Asia News Network, all the member news papers, they have set aside a page for the news and articles of other newspapers, and it is a weekly basis. In weekly basis, like the Kathmandu, when I was in the Kathmandu Post used to carry the issues of the Statesman, sometimes the Singapore's Straits Times or something like that, they used to carry. That is, I would call that a physical cooperation. That kind of physical cooperation I have not seen among South Asian papers. Maybe if there is some existing, I don't know about that. And the other kind of cooperation could be an understanding on the issues. Like we could be kind of having some kind of coordination on major issues. In this case, like in having the more economic integration among South Asian countries. So if we could have that kind of understanding on the cooperation, that would be great. But my point out here is that whenever it comes to the trade, media in South Asia, basically when I'm talking about South Asia, I don't really have understood many other media of other countries, but when I'm talking about, it's basically about India and Nepal, because we have very huge trade relations. And when we are talking about the trade relations between India and Nepal, what I have seen is that we become kind of a jingoist. That means we don't accept anything, like if Nepal is trying to export certain things to India, the bordering towns, the local newspapers of India and other newspapers in India, they just don't like it. Like if Nepal is exporting huge amount of dalda ghee, desi ghee, then there is a big hue and cry, and they come up with some idea to stop it. That's not free trade, I believe. And same is true in Nepal side. If something happens, then newspapers themselves like play like in a way of as a nationalist, then they don't support free trade. And I think it also happens maybe because our media have been owned by the businessmen, and the businessmen are into so many other kinds of businesses, and they don't want to compete. They want kind of a monopoly into some kind of business, and if the products are coming from some other countries, then they don't like to be more competitive, and they don't like cut down on their profits. Then maybe the reason like media is not always pro business. Media is not always pro free market policies. But in the meantime, while Nepal was going through, while we were signing, Nepal and India was signing power trade agreement and power development agreement. Those two agreements, power trade agreement was between India and Nepal, and power development agreement was between Nepal government and GMR, one of the Indian conglomerates. In those cases, at least Nepali media considered like very flexibly, and they supported PTA and PDA, and it happened. So my point is, are we the culprit for the barriers in the integration of economic integration of South Asia? I think sometimes more or less yes, we have been the culprits, being the barrier, because as I said that many owners, many promoters of the media, they don't want free trade. Sometimes they just want to protect their business, and sometimes the media, they try to be into like left to the center. They don't want to be pro market. They just don't want to be called free market champions, So kind of we cannot come out and support. So, and what need to be done, I believe, like since we we have not done enough, what I believe is that the media has to understand the importance of free market economy. The media has to understand, the media people have to understand that opening of the borders, the economic integrations are not bad for the poor people in those countries, because they are getting cheaper goods and services. So if the media can understand, internalize those aspects, then only the process of economic integration would be expedited. Because no matter what the economists and the experts in the closed rooms, in the hotel seminars and whatever, no matter what you come up with, no matter what are your declarations, what happens, the politicians normally only listen to the media. And if the media is not market friendly, if media is not for economic integration, it is very difficult to implement those policies. So my point out here is that, in the conclusion, we have the media have to come out of the cocoon of the progressive economic ideals. In the name of progressive economic ideals, we might be protecting, we might be creating barriers to the free trade. And the free market players, the experts, the economists, and whoever you people are discussing on all these issues, you should also try to take media along with you. And having media in a seminar like this, the economic summit like this, if the media issue is discussed only in a small panel, that will be not in the major discussions, then that will not help you take your issues to the general public. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Pradhan. I think you put forward the essential idea that media should be leading public opinion and not following it in its existing biases, which may be a thought that we can return to and try and explore later. I'd now like to request my colleague on my immediate right, Pranab Samanta, to make his comments. Pranab has established his reputation over the years at the Indian Express with a series of outstanding reports. He moved quite recently to India Today, where he is now the executive editor. So, Pranab.
Thank you, sir. I think Mr. Ninan put it very properly when he said the media cooperation by itself. When we look, we're supposed to compete with each other. So when you say cooperation, you tend to start exploring the idea of cooperation, and it doesn't exactly fit in a traditional paradigm. I think what we all mean over here is how can media contribute in shaping newer forms of cooperation in the region, which I think is a very healthy objective, particularly on the economic side. So without taking much time, there are lots of areas on which we report in South Asia, and most of them tend to be very conflict centric. It could be terrorism, it could be some form of violence in somewhere else, it could be lots of other issues which essentially are about conflict and XYZ playing some role in that conflict, whether it's an Indian actor or an actor from any other country in South Asia. Unfortunately, much of the media discourse is dominated by those kind of stories. We don't often talk of South Asia in really the economic terms. Maybe in some of the esteemed dailies, which Mr. Ninan edits, some economic papers do make an attempt, but it's still not part of general media discourse, and that is one area which I think newer forms of stories have to take over. So just to make a suggestion, one thing which we seem to lack in South Asia is, facts are sacrosanct in any form of reporting, and a common data reference point where everyone can at least agree that, okay, these are the numbers or these are the figures. This is where we stand today. So when a report is done in Nepal, or whether it's done in Pakistan or it's done in India, there is a basic reference point you go to. Okay, this is the place from where I can get all the necessary data regarding trade, infrastructure, growth, whatever it is, lending, anything. I think that becomes, that something like that makes a huge difference, because at least there are no contradictory reports coming out on basic factual issues. It prevents the system from also feeding and planting stories, as long as the source is credible. So I think that helps in a big way. Second, of course, access is a big issue for journalists. I do understand if there is a lack of access on stories which relate to security and other matters, but why should that be the case when it comes to economic stories or developmental stories or anything? It is strange that there are so many common problems which South Asia faces, but there's very little reporting done across borders on those issues. So even if it is connectivity, for instance, there are great stories and they can sell, even if it's great journeys or tourism or anything of the sort. We don't explore those stories enough. Also, I think this is a criticism which even India will have to face, Indian media will have to face. One keeps hearing there are as many as, I think, about close to little less than 200 foreign correspondents stationed in India. There's so much of global interest in India, and they from here tend to cover the entire region. And I think there are just about 20 odd Indian correspondents outside. And I don't think many of them are in South Asia. And I don't know how many South Asian correspondents, but I'm sure the figure is not very encouraging. So we don't just write enough about each other's countries. So you have a whole generation who may not have traveled and not reading about each other's countries, just general stuff. So that diversification can also happen, and that's something I think where media itself, maybe we need to introspect and sometimes realize that good stories from wherever they are, they don't have to be just market determined. You can shape the discourse yourself. So that's one point wanted to make. And apart from that, I think we need to also look at social media these days, because that provides a great opportunity to break those barriers which maybe existed 10 years ago or 5 years ago also. It also allows, I mean, there should be enough pressure on the correspondent, on the editor, that there is a second view. If you're doing a story, you should be able to cross-check, even if it requires talking to another government. So social media provides that opportunity even to the system. So for instance, I see the Pakistan High Commission, they've been covering Pakistan for a long time. And now Pakistan High Commission over here, I don't know if anybody's here from, but they've taken on to social media and they immediately send out their responses. So you just can't indulge in Pakistan bashing just like that. I mean, I'm sure there are others who do, but there is an immediate form of response, and that should be encouraged. Systems across the neighborhood should respond. There should be access points. Maybe missions in respective countries should have more robust media outfits so that biased stories or incomplete stories don't get into things, and that will prevent exactly what my colleague over here was saying about jingoism, because jingoism tends to build on lesser known facts. It's actually the best apology for ignorance. So that's one area with which I think just these 4 points for now, and I'll just pass on the mic to Mr. Ninan.
Thank you, Pranab. Your comments on social media are interesting. I have found that very often on social media you get more jingoism than you get in the mainstream press. And sometimes you get taken aback by the strength of the emotions that people write. On the other hand, I've also seen some of these defense websites where there is an active debate on defense issues, past wars, within larger, I suppose, amateur defense community, writing about a range of issues. But it's an interesting thought. I'll now turn to our colleague from Bangladesh, Mr. Shaukat Hussain. He started out 2 decades ago as an economic reporter for the Bangla Daily Sangbad, and is now the head of reporting at the newspaper Pratham Alo, which is the largest circulated Bangla newspaper in Bangladesh. He is also a master's in economics and has authored 2 books on economic issues, apart from being widely traveled covering conferences and so on. Whenever, for me, from my background in economic journalism and looking at economic issues, the interesting debate in recent years has been the fact that while people in India celebrate rapid economic growth, people like Amartya Sen have pointed out that Bangladesh, even though with slightly less to show in terms of economic growth, has actually done much better on the social indicators of progress. And very often you wonder, and sometimes the change is quite dramatic. It's not just better than India, it's better than almost all developing countries. So it really is a very unusual case. And it's a pity that there isn't more exploration and examination of how it has been achieved, because there's something there which is obviously quite a lot that certainly India can learn from, and perhaps other countries in the region as well. But anyway, Mr. Hussain.
Mr. Chairman, I am not an expert. I am a working journalist, and basically I am business reporter. I used to cover this type of conference, not participating as a speaker. So don't expect something new from me. As Mr. Pratik already told us, there is no media cooperation in this region. Although the region bears a lot of common history and heritage, despite having rigid borderlines, people of the region always eager to exchange thoughts and ideas. The media of South Asia is the strongest tool to cater the exchange, but the full potential is yet to be explored. Media consists of newspapers, magazine, radio, television channel and web portals. There is no depth of different kind of media in this region, which is rich in culture. Media in diversified language actually reflect this. The exchange among media across the region is, however, limited. The initiative taken by setting up South Asian Free Media Association, SAPMA, in 2000 was a significant step to promote networking among media community, improve professional standards and facilitate journalist exchange, media training and joint media productions. SAPMA also contributed to set up South Asia Media Commission, South Asia Media School and South Asia Media Net. Although newspapers are the most important media in this region, satellite TV channels appear as the most influential on people regarding entertainment as well as news. Indian TV channels have large viewers in other countries of the region, but there is a little reciprocity. For example, Bangladesh TV channels are yet to air their production to Indian viewers, especially Bengalis in West Bengal, as there are some technical barriers imposed by India. Moreover, many Indian TV shows, both in Hindi and Bengali, have drawn criticism for over-drama and wrong messages to audience. Hindi movies, however, have billions of audience across the region. Thanks to virtual world, almost all the newspapers of the region are now available to any reader. Thus, readers of a country can easily know what is happening in other countries in the region. Times of India, the largest circulated English daily in the world, has good readership in other countries also. Dawn, the leading English daily from Pakistan, has also drawn regional readership. Himal South Asian from Nepal is the first and so far only news magazine widely covers South Asian countries. In fact, the English newspaper of the region is playing important role to connect the people of the South Asian countries. Exchange and sharing among the regional newspapers have good potentials. Pratham Aalo, my newspaper, now engaged with Anandabazar, leading Bengali Daily India, based in Kolkata, on exchange some news, information, ideas and technology. Pratham Aalo, the largest circulated vernacular daily in Bangladesh, has become the biggest Bengali news portal in the world, having 6 million daily readership in virtual and the real world. Translating and taking cues from Indian business dailies like Business Standards or the Hindus Business Line to generate bilateral and regional economic news in Bangladesh and some other countries. South Asian media is at a crossroad now due to threats from some state machineries and offers from corporate conglomerates. Day by day, it becomes more challenging to uphold journalistic principle and present what actually happening and why it is happening. In this connection, well-coordinated cooperation among the media house in South Asia become very important. By extending hands of cooperation, the regional media can bring the people of the region closer, as large number of them still suffering in poverty. Poverty, inequality, social deprivation, political discrimination and terrorism are stumbling blocks on the way of advancement in South Asia. Media cooperation becomes a strong tool to fight with these odds. For this, leading newspaper of the countries can join hands with some targeted work plan. Governments of the country should ease visa procedures for journalists and media people so that they can make more direct exchange and travel across the region. Life and struggle of people need to be aired by TV channels to inspire others. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hussain. I'm really glad that you mentioned Himal, which is a pioneering exercise from Nepal in focusing on South Asia. It's picks on excellent issues, it's excellent quality in terms of what it produces, and really has a lot of social concern. Wonderful product. Finally, we have a non-media person as our final panelist, the retired ambassador, Mr. Paramjit Sahai, who started his diplomatic career half a century ago and has served in, I think, virtually every continent as far as I can make out. And he was instrumental in establishing new relationships after the Soviet Union broke up with the newly independent republics in Central Asia and the Caucasus. And his last two assignments were as ambassador in Sweden and then Malaysia. He's been very active after his retirement from his diplomatic service, and is a principal advisor, Center for Caucasian and Central Asian Studies, and also, I'm not sure what this is, coordinating secretary for 2 Punjab Center at the Center for Research in Rural and Industrial Development, which is based in Chandigarh. So, Mr. Sahai.
Thank you, Chairperson. As you said that I come as a non-media person. So, taking the cue from you and other speakers, if I can turn around the title for this media corporation, I presume it is neither media corporation among the media person or media corporation of the media with the government, but media's role as a bridge builder. Why I am saying that? Because this is very important in the context of South Asia. What we need is understanding. How do we understand each other? We can do so only if we know about other. Where does media fit in that exercise? It becomes as an instrument of generating awareness. We have to know about ourselves, each other, our weaknesses, our strengths. When I say that awareness, it does not mean that all the time give positive stories. It could be the positive stories, it could also be the negative stories also, because sometime out of the negative stories you get positive development, you see. Because if you know your weaknesses, then only you can improve. I think I would say to start with, To me, I think media is a very powerful instrument, you see. They call it the fourth estate, and in particular in India, it is very powerful. Of course, media is the traditional media, the print media, now the TV, and now the social media. So each media probably has a different role to play. But what are the basic role it plays? I would say that it has three roles to play. First, as a communicator. Second, as a disseminator. And third, as an educator. How does it perform its roles? By just bringing out the news as it is, without padding, it performs the roles of a communicator. We learn to know about each other, what is happening, things like that. Secondly, I think it can also play the role of an educator through its editorial, through other op-eds and things like that. And this is not only the media, but I think even our personalities, even the leaders have realized the importance of op-eds. Every time we have visit to India, we see President Obama writing an op-ed, you see. And we had the recent case of our Prime Minister, you see, writing a joint op-ed, which was a kind of a new initiative, you see, with Obama, and saying "Saath Saath Chalenge," something like that. I think the heading was, of course, trying to claim a message, but of course, he needed the media. Though at times there are criticism that sometimes you see that he keeps the media away, and but of course it is the media which has to perform that role. So, how does media perform this role? I think it is through the images which it is able to create in the minds of people. I think in real life, sometimes images are more important, the perceptions are more important than the reality. And in this context, I'm reminded of the statement made by the then External Affairs Minister to the SARC's Editors Conference in 2007. These are his words. He said, "One sentence from any one of you have the potential to reach millions. It can correct a wrong. It can create an image. It can plant a seed of understanding." To this, I like to add that, of course, you can plant a seed of misunderstanding also, because when you plant, at least here probably, when some of your own journalists, in fact, some of your media people, in fact, there was a conference 2010, where I think of South Asian experts, media in Delhi, and where they said the same words: avoid jingoism, avoid hate coverage of the news and things like that. I think the media itself realizes, you see, that what role they can play. This takes me to the next question. We talk of this, since it is an economic seminar, we talk of corporate social responsibility. The government of India also is talking, and they are going to fix kind of percentage, you see, for the business people to contribute to the social. Does the media also, can you think of media also having a social responsibility towards the society? I think this is debatable, but I think some luminaries like the Chief Justice of India, I think former Chief Justice Balakrishnan, that media has a social responsibility towards the society. And we see this thing happening in many ways. One, I think I must like to commend the Hindu appointing a reader's editor. The one purpose is to see that, you see, how you can make sure that the news which goes to the people is checked, counter-checked, or respond to something like that. Then I think in the context of India, Pakistan, South Asia, the initiative by the Times of India young group paper called the Aman Ki Asha, Hope for Peace, is again a very good initiative, you see, in which you see they are able to spread the message, pick up the stories, promote connectivity, you see, give things like that, so that you could help in sending a positive image, you see, of the countries in the region. Then I think it takes me to the next. I'll just give you a few examples how in what way the media has played, you see. I think look at the coverage. In 2004, I think there was reference today, see in the discussion, when Vajpayee visited Pakistan, and the way they described the famous Jappi between Vajpayee and Musharraf send a positive message. Similarly, I think when we had a problem with the Samjhota Express, you see, I think there was a very nice, interesting cartoon I saw by the Hindu, and which showed the track damage, but Prime Minister Manmohan Singh and the President standing next to that, and so the track is not damaged. So this send a message that despite the problem, things like that, there's still hope. Still you can go forward and move like that. Then again, I think on the other side, when the or External Affairs Minister visited Pakistan, the message was a bit negative message, you see, whether it is terra impasse or a deeper fissure. Similarly, I think we saw Mamata Banerjee parachuting out of the helicopter going to Bangladesh, again sending a different kind of message. Then we see another Modi and Obama, you see, standing next to each other, you see, when they are going to pay homage to Martin Luther King. So again sending a message of cooperation. So we do that, thing like that. But what is the problem? What are the drawbacks? I think one thing to my mind, I think today, and as some other referred, is lot of time our news coverage of even South Asia is through the Western eyes. I'm talking English media, I'm not really sure of the other media, which ties up with the foreign press. I don't see any tie-up, you see, of that nature, you see, with the press, you see, in the region. I would like to say that there was some positive trend, there is some forward movement. Now I see some articles, you see, in the Tribune from the Dawn. I see similarly some other newspapers, you see, bringing out some, I think Indian Express, you see, has some coverage, you see, on Pakistan and things like that, weekly coverage. So I think of trying to describe what is happening in those people. So some beginning has taken place. So this is a very, very, very positive development, and we have to encourage that. But ultimately, I think, well, how does the media generate the messages? Is it the text or the packaging? Is it the message or the messenger? I think these are questions we have to ask. I think, is it for the leaders to send the right messages and the media to cover? Or the media, you see, takes on itself to start dictating what the government should do that. I mean, there has to be, you know, yeah, too quiet. So I think it gave me a long time, but I thought since you were there. So to see what can be done, and I think what we have to do in the ultimate analysis is to see that we should have more media exchanges among the journalists. There should be freely available visas, you see, more conferences, more media training. I think we have the Government of India, I think, offer some scholarships, some good institutions, you see, things like that. But ultimately, I think finally, I think what we have to do is that we have to recognize the need to facilitate greater movement of media material, personnel in South Asia. And ultimately, what we should see is a plurality of views and diversity, rather than, seeing one view, and through this only we can build bridges of friendship with each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hai. Since you mentioned visa questions, it's a pity that we don't have someone from Pakistan here. There was a speaker designated for this session, but he has not shown up. So I don't know if we can go into that. But I would like to raise the issue of posting people in neighboring countries, because my understanding is that the primary constraint is money. That certainly in the picture in India is that newspapers are stressed, most of them. They have shrunk pages. so there's less space to cover, news that's not immediately high profile and top of mind. And I don't know, even India Today would think of posting people around the neighboring countries, as they used to in the past. And I know that, speaking for Business Standard, we had 8 or 9 full-time correspondents around the world. But we've had, when the whole financial recession set in, we had to withdraw them because it simply became unsustainable. Is that the principal constraint, or is lack of reader interest, and therefore you don't really want to give that much space to neighboring country issues? Is that the constraint? Can I just ask the panel to respond?
I don't think it's a question of lack of interest. The one thing, whenever you go across in South Asia, I mean, there's just particularly a lot of interest. And if you go to the neighboring countries as an Indian journalist, I sense there's a lot of interest about India, and why not here as well. I guess it's a question of packaging it right, and maybe looking at different stories, maybe trying to do stories in a different way, joining dots between India and Bangladesh and Nepal and trying to put things together. There is space for that. I just think we've stopped trying at one level. We should probably explore that. There is interest. I would not submit to this argument that there is no interest. The question of finances is always a difficult one, and you would know that better than anyone else. But I guess there is a way, if not like what we, at least I'm still new at India Today, but what we used to even do in Indian Express and now even in India Today is, at least if we can't have somebody there, we can find someone there. And maybe that process of finding should become easier. Maybe we should organize ourselves better so that we have databases, we know which are the journalists to pick from, so that why should a person who's writing in a reputed daily or in another country, say somebody in Pratham, Alo, why can't he or she contribute over here? So depending on the story, we can find the right person. That option should be explored, and we've been doing it in our magazine. And yes, there are conditions put. You find people from Pakistan, they want their names not to be revealed, but that's okay.
Really?
Yeah, we have to change names, so which we mentioned. So that happens, but there is that kind of cooperation is possible. A Pakistan story, a Nepal story, why? There is a lot of readership for it. I don't see that there is no readership. It just needs to be done well. My first thoughts.
Would you like to come in?
Okay, so if I understand correctly, your question is why there is no cooperation between media. The first thing, I will start with an example. Before coming to New Delhi, I met with a young journalist lady in Kathmandu, and she was telling me like she came by the road route to Kathmandu, and she was stopped at the border for over 2 hours at the Indian border, and she asked to the border guys there, why was she stopped, and the answer was just that because you are a Bengali. That is the situation, and she is a journalist, and she also had that SAARC Jorno pass, visa pass. So despite having a SAARC visa for the journalist, she was having the visa, but she was coming to Kathmandu, but she was stopped at I believe West Bengal and Bangladesh border for so long. In such a situation, that is the situation. We are missing a Pakistani journalist out here, probably because he didn't get a visa. No, probably. I'm not so sure. Probably because I have seen so many times. so many times when we are into some kind of just summits like this, some of the journalists, if we are in Karachi, some of the Indian friends are not in the session. And then if you try to find out why, and I'll tell you the answer. And again, when I believe that trend has been stopped by now, I hope so. And some of the Pakistani journalists in New Delhi, you don't see them during the daytime in the session. And if you ask both of them why, because they have to go to the nearest police station to report. So that is the situation. In such a situation, when we are talking about why we don't have media cooperation, is kind of what we say is kind of a misnomer. Anyways, but I believe the media cooperation as such, like interaction between the media people and writing about each other countries, is all market driven. If there are big events, if Tata Motors takeovers Land Rover, that's a big news, and we cover that. If there is a big landslide or snowfall in Nepal, and if many trekkers die, obviously I believe the other media do cover those things, those issues. Otherwise, just in the name of having cooperation, as an editor, I would not be entertaining any other issues. Just in the name of introducing a place or introducing a celebrity or somebody like that, that doesn't come and that doesn't count. But if there are issues, obviously. So my point out here is when we are talking about media cooperation, it's not about whether one media is covering about some other countries or one other media is covering about some other countries. That's not the issue. The issue is, are we moving forward together to our goal? The goal out here is economic integration. The goal out here is economic union. Are we going there? And do we have we agreed? And my question during my presentation was also like, I have never written a single story in my newspaper, that I am realizing now, but I have not, that some products of India or Bangladesh cannot come to Nepal. And I don't think that's my issue. Until I realize that that's my issue, because if those products were coming to Nepal from Bangladesh or from Pakistan or from Sri Lanka to Nepal, and if those products were competitive enough to provide cheaper goods to my poor people, that would be in the good of the nation, in favor of the people, poor people. But we don't do that. So we have to realize, when we talk about media cooperation, I believe we have to realize that it's not only about covering the stories of one country or one personality or one issue, but it's about understanding the overall issues. Like if we have the empathy for the businesses of other countries, if we understand that if we can destroy the boundaries in the borders, if it becomes a seamless trade that is good for all the countries in South Asia, then only it will help us, and the cooperation will come by itself. If only in the name of cooperation, if we get lots of money, if we have organized seminars like that, which we have been doing since I am in journalism for 20 years, and I have been taking part in those seminars, and we are always promising to cooperate and start covering each other's. We don't, because that doesn't make an economic sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any responses from this side? Would you like to come in?
In Bangladesh, we have lot of newspapers, TV channels, and online news portal. But our economy is not big, so that is very difficult to survive. And the financial problem is in every aspect in our newspaper industry or media industry. So we are trying to survive, and we shrink some feature page, and we are trying to write stories in different way, and we that is why we have now the online version of both Bangla and English, So we are trying, and I tell you that the Pratham Alo, the Bengali daily newspaper, we are only newspaper in our country now. This is, we are increasing still, but we are trying.
Okay. You want to come in? Okay.
In fact, I think we have tried to do something in practical way at our 2 Punjab Center at Chandigarh. We have invited a group of journalists, you see, from Pakistan to visit us, and that visit. Hello? Hello? Yeah, we done something in practical ways. We have invited a group of journalists from Pakistan in 1997, both TV and the print media and other opinion makers. The visit very successful. It generated awareness at our end and as well their end on what is happening. Then we had a conference in 2010 in March. The primary focus was on women media personality from South Asia. We tried to get a group of women media personalities, but then we opened not to be called that we have supported one particular gender. We let few men also participate in that conference, and that was very well attended. We are all from all the South Asian countries, and that resulted in our producing a book. You see, recently we published a book which gives the audience. So I think we are doing, you see, in some ways. And also I think what I want to say, I said before also, if we cannot, the financial concerns are concerned, but I think what we have to do is to understand Pakistan from Pakistani eyes, Bangladesh from the Bangladeshi eyes. See, if we can't afford it, our own people, you see, our own best would be we have our own people there like that. There are some visa constraints in Pakistan, but not in the other countries. So I think that's the second best we should adopt, is do that. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we should now turn to the floor for questions and comments. I would request you please to identify yourself so that everybody else in the room knows your background. And I presume there are mics around. Are there microphones? Microphones are here. Yes? Okay, so this gentleman here.
I would like to pose a question to the panel.
Sir, could you identify yourself?
I will, thank you. And the chair. My name is Mohanman Sanju. I come from Nepal. And my most of my career is devoted to public service work. I was in the Planning Commission for almost 12 years, and then I had a diplomatic assignment for 3 years, and then I'm engaged in social service activities also in Nepal. My question, Mr. Chairman, is that Professor Amartya Sen, the Nobel laureate son of India, I had the pleasure of meeting him a couple of times when he used to come to address social sort of function and discussion. He always complained that he cannot understand why he's always pushed by the press in criticizing as to why I support China in comparison to India. Support means here, I think human development indicators clearly show that Chinese have better results and India has not matched with the Chinese performance. And because of the fact that Amartya Sen used to appreciate Chinese development results and used to be critical to sort of Indian press as to why they, instead of educating the Indian population and policymakers, they keep sort of hanging on me and criticize me as to why I am more Chinese, pro-Chinese rather than pro-Indian. This is related to social development performance. I think his view was that with the same amount of investment, Chinese have achieved much larger results, whereas India has not, whether it is in the field of education, in the field of health services delivery, or any development indicators that shows the delivery and effectiveness at the grassroots level. Why he was so sort of convinced that Indian press is really against him and pushing him to the wall, simply because I tend to appreciate Chinese performance vis-a-vis Indian performance. Thank you.
Well, I'm not familiar with those issues, but maybe you would like to respond?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Saiju, for your questions. Really interesting question for media. Why is media only not supporting Amartya Sen when he says SDI is in favor of China and not in favor of India? It's not only about SDI, I believe. It's the overall issue, and I can even say that it's about the jingoism in media. And if Amartya Sen is being chased by media, that he is not referring about Chinese media, obviously he might be referring about the Indian media chasing him because he is supporting China. On that particular issue, maybe the jingoism could be an answer, but I think this is more than that. The issue is if China has achieved better in the index of human development, that doesn't mean that the press should be supporting China or Amartya Sen need to support China and only, because the human rights, the right to live, the right to property are also major issues in human life. In any human life, in any individual's life, if somebody is only judged by what the government has provided, and if somebody is gagged, not able to speak, if the media is controlled, restricted, and the government decides on everything, on those issues, I believe only going by the SDI index and only, appreciating that country or the government would give a totally wrong message to the public. And general public of a democratic country would start considering that, okay, so the economic growth is the only agenda for human beings. That is not true. There are other aspects. It's not only about the educational, it's not only about health, it's only also the mankind is run by the brain, not only by the bread. I think that is the answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pradhan. Any other? Okay, we've got two hands up. Okay, one here and then the next one there. Yes, please.
My name is Beni Prasad Agarwal. I am a former Indian diplomat. I will start by narrating an anecdote. In 1984-88, I was a master in Greece, in Athens. The East German ambassador came to see me in January '88. At that time, I asked him whether Gorbachev's glasnost and perestroika could lead to the reunification of Germany. And his answer was, which was very firm and categorical. He said, "Oh, no, India and Pakistan will be united before Germany." Why I am recalling this anecdote is to say that by '89 the Berlin Wall fell, and in 1990 Germany was united, and the subcontinent is still in a mess, mainly because of India-Pakistan hostility. But just as what happened and his logic, you see, the East German ambassador, said India has seen a united South Asia for long periods at different phases of history, in the ancient times, medieval times, modern times, whereas Germany had been united only since 1871. So this was his logic. He said that was also because of the rivalry of the Habsburgs and Hohenzollerns, otherwise it would not have been even early. Why I am recalling it is this, that the media can play a very positive role in bringing South Asia together. It is not doing enough, and some ways have to be found for it or looked for it. We have to look for ways that it can happen, because whereas in infrastructure development, in trade barriers and other things, there's so much bureaucracy involved. This is the easiest thing to do, and more effort should be made in this regard.
Thank you. Sir.
Yeah. Sanjay Kathuria from the World Bank. I'd like to sort of take up one thread that has been going through the discourse here, which is really the issue of media leading and not following, so shaping public opinion. And I think, this gathering and other gatherings of this kind are an attempt to provide economic analysis and substance on, costs and benefits. And I believe that, and we are very happy to provide such analysis to the media and provide also pointers as to who else can provide such analysis. So I think we are very happy to be partners in that endeavor. We have a project actually which was referred to in the morning, which is called Shaping a More Positive Narrative of Regional Integration, where certainly the media will be a critical partner as we get ready to sort of hit the road with the products in that analysis. But one idea that I would like to throw up for consideration of those in the media who are already here. For example, I've been trying to get an uptake of so highlighting costs as well as benefits. Now, very interesting, but these are development stories, and you have to see, as Mr. Samantha mentioned, you see, if there is interest, then there could be really interesting stories that you could have that are human interest, but also highlighting costs as well as benefits. So one concrete suggestion, I've been trying to get a taker for that, is that sit on the back of a truck, start from Dhaka, and go all the way to Kolkata, or the other way around, start from Kathmandu and come up to, try to come to Chittagong. Sit with that truck and film that whole process or write about that process. I mean, it will be an amazing human interest story. It will be an agonizing story about, all the checks and balances and, at each stage, all the local within India, the interstate as well as across borders. I mean, I think it would be a fascinating story, but I've yet to find a taker. We can provide a lot of the background analytical work which will feed that kind of story. And we have many such ideas, but we need kind of partners to highlight and interest take up both on the positive side, on the benefit side, as well as on the cost side. And both obviously have the same end about the narrative.
Thank you very much. Yes.
I'm Pradeep Mehta from CUTS. I just wanted to share another dimension of media within the region itself. Both me and our Pakistani friends have been constantly writing articles promoting regional trade and bilateral trade in both Pakistan as well as in India, Business Line, Financial Express, Dawn, The News, etc. And also contributing articles to newspapers in Sri Lanka, Kathmandu Post, and one more paper, I forget the name, within the region itself. I'll just narrate one interesting incident which happened. India launched an anti-dumping action against against Bangladesh export of lead-acid batteries, which is quite a ludicrous action. And I wrote for both the Bangladesh Financial Express, sorry, that is the name I was forgetting, and one for Business Line, as a consequence of which the Government of India realized its folly and lifted the anti-dumping action. So, I mean, there are various such incidents which I could narrate, but I'll just give you one more example. Talking about jingoism, I've come across examples when we opened India's economy to import of Volvo trucks. I remember reading a report in the Business Line saying that the WTO pushes India to open borders for Volvo trucks. The Business Line. I mean, can you imagine what has WTO got to do with import of Volvo trucks? And finally, there is something which is far less reduced now, but often in media we find that the East India Company syndrome across the three countries keeps on coming up. It is much less now. It was quite high 20 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Okay, I'll go back to the panel for a final round, maybe in reverse order. Mr. Paranjit Singh Sahai.
Hello. Yeah, I think let me answer the question raised by my friend Ambassador BP Singh. I think there is a forum called SAARC Editors Conference. They do meet periodically. I do not know how the editors connect with the journalists or the media people, whether there is a connectivity between the editors and their own people and things like that. But I think there's one forum, which should be strengthened or which should be made more active, so that they could perform, their role in generating awareness. Regarding my friend from the World Bank, I think there are some persons, I can introduce him to some of the persons, who may be willing to take on your project, giving a negative response. But I think they have done some work, for the Government of India, and generating awareness on the rail link, between India and Myanmar, took the difficult task of going on that. And I think you can get in touch with directly. I'll be very happy to do that. Thank you.
You mentioned the story about to go to Dhaka, from Dhaka to Kolkata and vice versa. We'll do. We did it in our country, but we'll not never do this in this region. I mean, Dhaka to Kolkata. We'll do this definitely.
No, but I think some good points which were made over here. Just only disagreement is that I think Mr. Amartya Sen gets a lot of support in India, and perhaps critique of some of his work is happening now, and that's fine. I think that's good form. As far as I think doing the different kind of stories which you mentioned, so they're most welcome. I think a lot of I'm not a TV journalist, but I'll just hazard into uncharted waters to say that a lot of our television journalism has become about just shows, and we have to get back to a lot more legwork and reporting, which I think newspapers, magazines, all of us have to do. Unfortunately, we don't get that visible at times, but that. Having said that, we should start, and there are ideas, there are things which can be done, because ideas do come bottom up. They are the best served. So that's a point well taken, and of course getting to work with each other and writing about each other's country is the best way to move forward on this. Thank you so much.
Thanks for some of your concerns. And I'd go with Mr. Agrawal, former diplomat. He said that media can play a positive role in bringing South Asia together. That's exactly what we've been talking about, and that's the reason I believe we are here together discussing all these issues. I believe the media has been doing, but more than that, the organizations which are moving forward for the economic integration, for the economic union, they have to take media along with them. Until and unless the media understands the importance of economic union, the importance of economic integration, the importance of free market economy, it's not possible for media to support that. So we have to make the editors, the reporters understand what should be the issues they should be understanding, and how, and we have to bring them on board. Then only the support from media will be more substantial, I believe. Talking about Mr. Sanjay Kachure's suggestion about the issues that you would be willing to support the media on major issues like from Kathmandu to Chittagong or other those kinds of issues, as my friends have also mentioned that they are already doing it and we are also doing it. The issue out here is that the media ethics do not allow us to just take the benefit of certain organizations and go on such kind of trip and report. And if we do that, we have to mention that this trip was sponsored by the World Bank. And if we give this proposal to the World Bank, they wouldn't agree on that. They said, no, we cannot give you the right to say that it was sponsored by a World Bank, otherwise many people will come and this and that. My ethics, there is no one ethics, one general standard of the ethics, but my ethics would ask me to write even when I go back, and if I do a reporting on this particular event, then I will be writing at the end of the article, I will be writing that I was being sponsored by RIS to this the trip to Delhi for a few days. So those are the issues sometimes which makes us difficult to take support from the organizations like World Bank, ADB and other issues. Otherwise, we are pretty much open. Of course, the ideas you have come up with are great. We can go on that, but you should also be willing to give us the space to mention where the money is coming from for those stories, and that makes our position clear. And I think that's all I can say about Mr. Mehta's anti-dumping action. I really don't have anything to say about that. Thank you.
I was going to wind up with that, but we have about 5 minutes left, and there's a gentleman here who would like to come in with, I don't know, a question or intervention, so please.
Just one suggestion. Since Sanjay is talking about doing this narrative.
Identify yourself.
Yeah, I'm Mustafizur Rahman from Center for Policy Dialogue, Dhaka. Taking cue from Sanjay's offer, Mr. Shaukat Hussain Masoom, my compatriot from Bangladesh, he mentioned that we can see all the television channels in Dhaka, but it's not reciprocated. For example, in India, particularly in West Bengal, there is a lot of audience who are willing. And whenever we raise this issue, we are told that you see, it is not Indian government's policy, it is the operators. The operators don't find it economically viable, so they don't take it. The narrative in Bangladesh is that Indian business people, they have vested interest. They don't want our channels to be shown in West Bengal, because with the channels and with the programs, there will also be advertisements of Bangladeshi products. So there is a vested interest in West Bengal and in India, so that they don't show Bangladesh. So I don't know what is true. So if we can, taking advantage of offer by Sanjay, if we can really dig into this and find out really what is the matter, because this is one issue really, creates a lot of distrust, unnecessarily, So I would think that this would be one area that you could explore. Thank you.
No, thank you. It is an interesting issue, and I didn't know that this problem existed, so I think somebody should go into it and find out what the real... you want to come in, Mr. Mehta?
We've long been propagators, Musafi, of a regional competition policy to deal with these kind of problems.
Okay, we must close now. I would just briefly like to say at the end that this is the least integrated region in the world. When you look at any region, and the lack of integration carries a cost. There is a cost in economic terms because regional trade is so small. There is, I think, a cost in human terms because we don't get to know each other well enough. We don't know about each other well enough. So media has a role to play. Several issues have been highlighted as to why the situation is where it is today. And I think it is for us to think, both people in the media and people who could influence public policy on some of these questions as to what is the way to address this larger question of integrating the South Asian region in as many ways as possible. So with those brief comments, I'd like to wind up and thank you all for your attention, and may I suggest that we close with a round of applause for our speakers. Thank you.